Yeah, you know what time it is when you hear my voice. You all know what time. I'm back. So take that crack pipe out of your mouths. We're in a vicious, vicious bear market. And you can't speed this up, ladies and gentlemen. If this is your first rodeo, trust me, you cannot speed this process up. We either have a time-based capitulation or we have a price-based capitulation. As we've discussed many times, this is a carbon copy, an almost mirror of the previous cycle that we had before, ladies and gentlemen. I did warn as many people as possible, but they didn't want to listen to me in that time. They were all euphoric and just listening to Trump and his peers and all of these influencers that have finally disappeared. In the previous cycle in 2022, we formed a dead cat bounce. In this current cycle, we formed a dead cat bounce and we swept the highs. This was an upthrust. In 2022, we swept the highs and formed an upthrust. There were no more buyers left. They were calling, all of these price cheerleaders were calling for higher prices. And I warned folks at the peak of top, I said, listen, this is the end. This is going to go down. No one listened. They spat in my face, and as a result, the price hurdled all the way down, just like in 2022. The price hurdled all the way down, formed selling climax, and then a new set of price cheerleaders came again. In 2022, they'd done the same thing. A new cohort of price cheerleaders came out. They said the same thing. This time is different. No, we're not in a bear market. Dear Lord, we've only just dropped 35. This is nothing. We're going to continue to go up higher. A bear market is 70%, 80%. And just like clockwork, this was an upthrust, ladies and gentlemen, in 2022. And in 2026, we formed an upthrust. And as a result, we headed all the way down, selling climax, and the same thing happened in 2022. Almost identical as selling climax, and then distribution, further selling climax. The difference between this is that we had two selling climax. In 2026, because of diminishing returns, we only had one selling climax. You can see by the volume, ladies and gentlemen. I never show you news here, I just show you the charts. And so the price cheerleaders came out during that time, ladies and gentlemen. They said the same thing. They always use the same material. They always recycle the same garbage. This time is different. We have a new buyer in the market. Michael Saylor has a new cohort of buyers. He has a new financial instrument. And this time, ladies and gentlemen, is different. And just like the previous cycle in 2022, we heard the same things, ladies and gentlemen. If you weren't around, they said the same thing. It's very convincing what they do. They make you buy tops and sell bottoms. They always do. That is what they were bred to do. And so in 2022, we cascaded all the way down. We dumped 24%. And in 2026, almost like a mirror, we dumped 28%. Now we're just oscillating between this range right over here. Likewise, the same thing is happening. If you head over to our website, I've got plenty of material, free material for you, because these videos are not about me, ladies and gentlemen. These videos are just for you. So if you head over to bear market comparison, and the closest comparison is actually 2018. The yellow line is this current, beautiful, gorgeous bear market, while the purple line is the previous bear market. Now we just tend to move up to sideways during that time until we have a real catalyst. The psychology during this period and this period is that basically buyers start nibbling. They start nibbling into this area. So they're thinking, yes, this is the bottom. This is the bottom. Yes, surely this is the bottom. And what happens is they're the last cohort to get annihilated. And then when everyone is sufficiently wrecked, I'm talking about everyone, has been wrecked, and 99.9% of the cohort in crypto, unfortunately, is sufficiently wrecked, then, ladies and gentlemen, we can rise again. I don't make up the rules. Don't attack me. This is the roadmap. of crypto. If 2018 plays out again, then we could just continue to scare folks. We could continue to wick lower, but never really close. Wick lower, never really close, and then finally we get our final capitulation. Now I know most of the herd all sounds the same now. They finally clocked on that they were wrong, and I think maybe there's like 80% of folks, maybe 85% of folks that have folded and capitulated, while the rest are still trying to fight this. Now I've seen on the net from my friends as well, they're saying like, surely because the consensus is that we're gonna see lower prices, it's not gonna happen. My counter argument is one thing and one thing only. If the S&P 500, like it usually does during midterm elections, comes down, then there is nothing on this earth that is going to save Bitcoin. Nothing. I don't care who you are or what you think. If the S&P 500, some of the greatest apex predator companies, the most productive companies on the planet, go down by 10, 20, 30%, there is nothing Bitcoin can do about it. 4 years ago, midterm election right over here marked the very bottom. 2018, 4 years before then, ladies and gentlemen, marked the very bottom. November, 4 years prior to that, marked the very bottom. In October, right over here. We never ever durably closed underneath that period in the midterm elections, ladies and gentlemen. We never done it. The S&P 500 simply retested to confirm we are still in a bull market and raced much higher. However, there are exceptions. In 2010, I think Obama was president during that year. We actually bottomed in July for the S&P 500. In 2006, in October, November, December, well, it was green shoots during that time. We kept on going up higher and higher and higher until we found ourselves in a secular bear market. I can keep going on and on and on. The moral of the story is that the market normally has a rhythm. It has a rhythm to markets. There is a rhythm. So what we find ourselves, excluding massive macro conditions like the GFC period, the dot-com period, we tend to see a drawdown in Q3, Q4 of the election year. All models are wrong, but some of them are useful. Now, most of the bottom indicators have flashed. 14 out of 17 indicators have flashed the bottom, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't mean that we found the absolute bottom and we're heading into spring. Most of this I don't really follow. I don't really respect most of this. There are a few indicators that I really respect and follow. In my opinion, the CVD score is the most accurate, in my opinion. I've used it in previous cycles and it's worked perfectly fine for me. It's enabled me to find the very bottom or close to the very bottom. And in this current bear market, the bottom is roughly around 48,000 US dollars and some change. We haven't got there. We're going to move sideways until we find ourselves with a catalyst. Now, some people are saying it's going to be Michael Saylor, but most of the time it's something that the market has not anticipated. Because most of the time what normally happens is it gets priced in. So a lot of folks price in a worst case scenario. So we've been talking about Michael Saylor for years and years and years and years, and if something blows up, it's probably priced in. What we need is a black swan event, something to really scare the last cohort. Most of them are strong hands now. The people that are here, the people that are really over here, and the people and the cohorts that are over here are the last men standing. And they need one final catalyst to shit their pants. Once they sell the bottom and buy the tops, ladies and gentlemen, and they are sufficiently wrecked and they're wiped out. Unfortunately, that's the truth. Until they are wiped out, we can see a cleanse in the system. Most participants, what they tend to do is they over leverage and they get caught swimming naked. It happens every single bull market. Charlie Munger famously said there are 3 things that a man should be careful of: ladies, liquor, and leverage. I think the consensus is that Bitcoin will come back. So what happens with shitcoins? Majority of them never made a new high, which is really alarming and scary. 90% of shitcoins, ladies and gentlemen, never ever made a new cycle high. Some of them made a pathetic lower high, and in 5 years it did nothing. Even a meme coin such as Doge couldn't even get to the previous high. There are some major exceptions like XRP, Tron, but 99% of these cohorts never made an all-time high. Now, most crypto influencers are gonna recycle the same jargon and the same filth again and again and again, because at the end of the day, they're just marketers. They're here to just sell you and shill you a shitcoin. I'm here to tell you the unadulterated truth, ladies and gentlemen. I don't get views because I just keep it real. Crypto is going through a identity crisis. It really doesn't know what problem to solve. And it's very, very similar, matter of fact, almost identical to the dot-com period. 99.9% of dot-com companies didn't ever come back. They just vanished. Most of them were pump and dumps, and they came with a white paper similar to what we're seeing here, and it's just history repeating once again. We are currently in a dot-com period for crypto. Crypto doesn't really know where it's heading, and out of the carnage, there will be one or two of them that do survive, maybe a handful of them, 5 to 7 to 10 of these companies that actually really do survive, while the rest of them will get buried and forgotten, and we won't ever speak about them. Crypto has become more easy now because we now know that majority of this is going nowhere. We all know that, so we can distinguish and make it even more easier for us to find the real companies. Hyperliquid is performing during a bear market, ladies and gentlemen. Believe it or not, it's outperforming Bitcoin in a bear market. Now, I'm not going to show you a dream because I've seen this happen many times. There'll be a coin sometimes during a bear market that does really well. It outperforms Bitcoin, and then in a bull run doesn't do anything. So take it with a pinch of salt. This is promising, ladies and gentlemen. We have Hyperliquid that is outperforming during a bear market. This is a real company, and it's aligned. The users, their ethos, their policy, everything is aligned. This is one of the golden childs. It's done remarkably well. Now, I know some of you hate this particular coin because, I don't know, it's got a bad stigma around its name. But ladies and gentlemen, this coin looks remarkable. It's just been going up and to the right, and you can learn from this. Ladies and gentlemen, Tron has primarily just focused on stablecoins. That's all they do. That's all they do. Stablecoins are the most successive part of crypto. The successive part of crypto. And the dominance looks like this. I'm not making this up. It's been outperforming Bitcoin since 2021, ladies and gentlemen. It's outperformed Bitcoin through a bull and a bear market by 558%. It's about to make a huge U-turn and head to the previous highs. I just show you charts, ladies and gentlemen. I don't show you narratives. I don't show you news. I don't show you none of that. No coin, no fucking coin has ever in history, listen to me, no coin in history has got higher than its launch date. Never. That means Tron, in the long run, outperform Bitcoin. Stablecoins are the most successful thing in crypto. If you head over to our site, we follow stablecoins. And if you look very closely, stablecoins were actually going down. We had a depeg, a massive depeg with Tether, with USDT, and with all of these stablecoins like DAI and many other stablecoins. And as a result, now, ladies and gentlemen, it's far different. Stablecoins are not really decreasing like the previous bear market. It's moving sideways. That means cohorts or participants are just holding stablecoins. They're confident in holding stablecoins. What normally happens is they sell their Bitcoin, they sell their ETH, and if they have a chance, they sell their shitcoins before it goes down 99% and another 99%. They move their stablecoin into fiat, and the stablecoin is burnt. It's showing right here, ladies and gentlemen. They're just sitting on stablecoins, waiting to deploy their cash into crypto again. I got a pet peeve with some folks on here. So some of the audience members say, yeah, USDT dominance can't go any higher. It really can't. We can't go any higher. It was non-existent in 2015. It was like 0.01%, and then it went to like 0.1%, then it went to like 0.6%. It was basically non-existent, and we've been just going up into the right, literally. And one thing that really cheeses me off is some participants here, some of you have the audacity to say that we've topped stable coins per perpetually go up. Fiat is a larger asset class, a larger market cap than everything in crypto. It's larger than stocks, ladies and gentlemen. And you think because Bitcoin has bottomed, you think the dominance is going to end here in the previous bear market of 2022. You must be smoking on mushrooms, my friend. You must be really, something's definitely wrong with you. This, ladies and gentlemen, continues to go up perpetually. Now, I know most of you are thinking, nope, this is a range, like this is a range here, and we got a range right over here, and no, it doesn't work like that, ladies and gentlemen. This continues to perpetually go up higher. Now, we did discuss that this is a falling wedge, and this is bullish, ladies and gentlemen. If we overlay Bitcoin dominance, you can see that it is like an inverse correlation. Whenever coin goes down, whenever dominance goes down, right over here, you see Bitcoin go up higher, ladies and gentlemen, and this can continue to go up higher. We formed a bull flag right over here for the dominance, yet we formed a bear flag for the actual USDT price of Bitcoin. This is doing another bull flag. This is not going to stop here, ladies and gentlemen, because we're at the previous 2022 high, and that makes sense to you. No, this continues to go up. You can even look at the market cap. It continues to go up. Don't let the bull tarts confuse you, ladies and gentlemen, because they are bred, literally, they are bred to buy tops and sell bottoms, ladies and gentlemen. Buy tops and sells bottoms. So you got to remember this. We over here are a completely different breed. You don't know me, my friend. I'm not the part of the part of crypto or YouTube that you think I belong to. Don't put me on a box. I'm better than all of them. I promise you. Don't ever compare me to that filth. Since we're talking about stable coins, let's talk about this beautiful gem. We identified that this was all a euphoric top period. It was a massive run during this period in 2016 all the way to 2022. I didn't buy it, ladies and gentlemen. I was waiting for the flush out, and then finally we formed what I always love to see. We formed a capitulatory bottom. The volume increased, we had selling climax, and I bought this. I didn't even know about the news. You know me, I don't care about the news. I called the very bottom, the peaker bottom of this, ladies and gentlemen, and all our inner members were rewarded. In my opinion, you're never ever going to see lower prices than $37. MicroStrategy is playing out the same thing that it done previous cycle. It formed a blow off top right over here. Likewise, in the previous cycle, we formed a blow off top. We formed a right shoulder. Exact carbon copy. We broke this trend line, and then finally we broke down. We broke this trend line, finally broke down. Carbon copy. And I was warning folks right over here, the peak at top, but you got greedy and you didn't want to sell. It's fine, it happens. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing something similar to this. Could we do another selling climax? That's the $1 million question. I don't know right now, ladies and gentlemen, but we could see a further selling climax to around $50, and then we could see a sideways accumulation period. Some honorable mentions as a Bitcoin derivative play, ladies and gentlemen, is MetaPlanet. MetaPlanet done incredibly well during the previous cycle. I think, yeah, of course, it outperformed Bitcoin by a massive amount. It went up by 130x, ladies and gentlemen. If you bought anywhere, you would have still outperformed Bitcoin. From here, ladies and gentlemen, it done a nice 20x. It's currently almost down 90%. This is a massive buy opportunity, and I bought right here. I've spoken to my private members as well. We're buying right over here. This is a good indicator that I like to use sometimes to finding the bottom in Bitcoin, or when the bear market is going to end. What helps me sometimes in navigating a brutal bear market or a euphoric bull market is looking at the Bitcoin and gold pair. As you can see, if it hits to this area, ladies and gentlemen, it means that we're nearly at the end of the bear market. If it hits these higher areas, then we're closer to the end of a bull market. The Bitcoin pair peaked first, which was a leading indicator. It actually peaked on the 9th of December 2024, and the price of Bitcoin on its USD pair peaked in October the 6th, 2025. It was almost a year later. It was 287 days, a year later, when gold was sounding the alarm. If we correlate or cross-examine what we saw here previously, so 287 days will get us to December the 7th, 2026. Ethereum is having a major identity crisis. It's like a child that has a father who is half Nigerian and then half Spanish, and a mother who is half Japanese and half Latin American. And the child grows up confused, really doesn't know what kind of country it wants to identify. And Ethereum is going through this constantly. And during this bull run, ladies and gentlemen, we've seen the same thing. We have a narrative, and this narrative doesn't hold, and it pumps 161%, and then it crashes, hurdles down, and everyone gets really sad, and it goes down 44%, and then again another narrative emerge, it doesn't stick, and then goes down a further massive 67%, and then finally they push another narrative, wherever it may be, DeFi, NFTs, meme coins, stablecoins. It doesn't have an identity at the moment, and then pumps 260%, and then again we see a massive cascading drop of 70%. What I'll say to the Ethereum team, to the foundation, just pick a lane and stick to it. And if I was the CEO or one of the founders, I'll just stick to stablecoins. Do what Tron is doing and just provide stablecoins to everyone on the planet. Man, woman, child, machines. Ethereum for the past 5 years. 5 long years. 5 years has gone nowhere. It's a stable coin, and it reminds me of XRP, ladies and gentlemen. XRP done the exact same thing. It went sideways for the same period of time. XRP went nowhere for roughly 2,478 days. It looks really good. The chart looks really good. It's forming higher highs and currently is around a 68 billion market cap. XRP came with the notion that we don't care about decentralization. All we're going to do is we're going to build for banks. We're going to be a private company. They don't care. We're just going to use the frameworks, the technology, the blockchain. And you know what? This is one of the most successful companies in crypto, sorry. One of the most successful. I didn't come into crypto to form or to join a cult, ladies and gentlemen. I came to crypto to make money, and along the way, it would be nice if we change people's behaviors. And unfortunately, crypto has not answered many of these questions. We are languishing at the bottom, but hopefully after this .com period that we're in, we can finally actually solve real world problems. And meme coins. Now, meme coins it originated from Elon Musk, ladies and gentlemen. It was just a play. It was just something fun, ladies and gentlemen. It was never ever meant to be something that actually lasts and sticks. However, because of, unfortunately, I was reading something as well, and it said something really powerful, and it said dying civilizations always turn to gambling. So when a civilization, just like Weimar Republic during the 1920s, ladies and gentlemen, they all started to see hyperinflation. So they got so desperate, they were just gambling on anything, because the value of money on an hourly basis was changing dramatically. So they just started to get into gambling. And I think meme coins are the epitome of gambling. There is nothing here, ladies and gentlemen. People use this as a marketing tool, and there is nothing here for folks. This went up massively and then crashed back down, and the space is just riddled with pump and dumps. You can't hold these things for longer than a few days. Unfortunately, you get a little 50%, a little 100% gain, but it's riddled. Unless the actual culture changes and participants actually believe in something and actually want to hold stuff like Bitcoin, this will never ever change, ladies and gentlemen. This is not the participants you want to even bring into crypto. Yeah, this is not your demographic. People want to talk about onboarding and onboarding this, and I want to onboard that. These are not customers you want in your store. These are low hanging fruits. These are low quality customers that you bring. You don't want this. You want to bring you want to bring doctors, you want to bring engineers, that's what the stock market brings. They bring actually high net worth individuals. They don't bring, kids with $500 and a dream, ladies and gentlemen. You don't want this. And Robinhood has made a new chain, and they're trying to, get customers through the door. This is not the answer. Many participants are seeing this, and it's going all over the web. And I don't blame them because this is just backed by data, ladies and gentlemen. 2014 bear market, 2018 bear market, 2022 and 2026 looks almost similar. 2015 is a spring, 2019 is spring, 2023 is spring, and 2017 is spring, and the rest is history. This is all backed by data. So many participants are sharing this amongst friends, family members, cohorts, whatever. Coin has had an epic bull run. Epic bull run. For almost 15-16 years, we've had an actual bull run, a secular bull run. The only way this changes is if we have a secular bear market. Now, gold showed something similar where it goes sideways for many years. The first time it went sideways, ladies and gentlemen, it went sideways for around 7,600 days. Right over here, it went sideways for around 3,700 days. So we could see something similar with Bitcoin. A 4-year cycle is broken, not to the upside. Let me repeat. This 4-year cycle is only broken to the downside. So that means Bitcoin could be in a secular bear market, ladies and gentlemen, for a systemic period. Most markets, believe it or not, most markets, ladies and gentlemen, they actually trend sideways. We don't really see massive. We've been blessed because of QE. We've been blessed because of this crazy economy and the macro conditions. Us millennials and some of the Gen X and some of the late boomers have just seen massive appreciation in asset prices due to hyperinflation and QE. Once that changes, ladies and gentlemen, we have periods of massive secular bear markets, ladies and gentlemen. We had it with the S&P 500. We had a long period from this period all the way to this period until 1942, before the war finished. And then we had money printing or whatever during that time. And then it continued to go up higher and higher. The S&P 500 looks like a meme coin. It really does. It really does. And in my opinion, some of it has got to do with hyperinflation. I don't think if we don't get a recession, ladies and gentlemen, then we get hyperinflation. And you could really class this as hyperinflation when a government takes on more and more debt to pay for things and it starts printing its currency. You're not actually getting richer, guys. It just means you're getting poorer. Asset prices are not actually appreciating. If you actually compare this to gold, it's underperforming gold. It hasn't done nothing really. It really hasn't done. This is the actual true value of stocks, ladies and gentlemen. Compare that to gold. Where have we gone? We've gone to the upper areas since 1969, and we could be practically playing out the same thing as 1969, ladies and gentlemen. And it went down compared to gold by 95%. It only bottomed in 1980. So we could see something similar whenever we go to the higher percentiles, like right over here. I've made the trend line already. So whenever we get to these higher ranges, it marks the top or the S&P 500. That's why some analysts are moving to China. And I've got some Chinese stock, ladies and gentlemen, but that's for my private member. This is Devo. This is the volatility index for Bitcoin. And if you overlay Bitcoin, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting to the lower tier of this trend line. So whenever we get to the lower tier, it means that volatility is getting closer. So in 2023, it was a spring during that time, or just the early innings of a bull market. And then we had massive volatility. Likewise, again, we got to the lower trend line in 2025 in September, marked the top on October the 6th, and then volatility increased. Whenever we get to these higher areas, we wicked, ladies and gentlemen, at the very top right over here, and it marked selling climax. This was max pain, and now, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting very close to another volatility spike. Attention IQ measures Bitcoin searches, volume, and also stable coin volatility, and currently we are sitting at 8. It's very quiet. Everyone's busy watching the World Cup. Is Argentina gonna win or Spain going to win? My bet is on Argentina. Buying at the very bottom has been fruitful if you hold, ladies and gentlemen. If you trade it like a meme coin, you won't see the results. You need to actually buy at these very lows and then sell when we get to loud conditions and euphoric conditions. If you've done that multiple times, and if you followed us here, you would have been able to buy at the lows and sell at the tops. Very simple. Ethereum is the same thing. It's currently at 17, and it follows Ethereum's trading volume, Ethereum searches, and stable coin volatility. And currently we're at the lower percentile right over here. And if you hold, buy during this time, and if you sell at the euphoric period, you will make money. Simple as that. We buy low and we sell high. I know you hear this often, guys, but this is the real deal. If you actually want to outperform, ladies and gentlemen, join us in our inner circle. I'll see you next week. Peace.